wait, step aside when we come in. Feel it in your chest, the syllables get pumping. People on the street get panic and start running. Words on loose leaf sheet, complete coming. I jump on my mind, I summon the rhyme, I'm dumping. Healing the blind, I promise to let the sun in. Sick of the dark ways, we march to the drumming. Jump when they tell us that they want to see jumping. Dad, I want to see some fist pumping. Lift something, take back what's yours. Say something that you know they might attack you for. Cause I'm sick of being treated like I have before. Like a stupid standing for what I'm standing for. Like this war's really just a different brand of war. Like it doesn't cater to rich and a fan.
That's right, Cookie. It is Southern Drawl Night tonight. Welcome to Wide Awake Radio. I am your host, Charlie McGrath. My website is wideawakenews.com. If you are not one of the 80 people in the chat room right now and you'd like to join them, go to wideawakenews.com, click on the Wide Awake Radio link, and it will take you right into the chat room. I'm going to announce right now, Christopher Greene from Greene Wave TV is going to be the guest for the entire hour tonight. He put out a couple interesting videos today in which he's talking about solutions and kicking off his website. We're going to be talking solutions and about his projects that he has for the future. But if you have questions for Christopher, start calling now, 877-342-6673, 847-332-6673, or you can head over to the chat room at wideawakenews.com and post questions there, and we'll try to take them on the air. All right, so, lots of news going on today. Obviously, we have a monstrous, expensive estate dinner going on in D.C. tonight for the president of China. And we have Pennsylvania Avenue just absolutely lined with Chinese flags. We have China coming out telling us today basically to shut up and mind our own business when it comes to, number one, human rights in their nation, and also when it comes to the currency. We've managed to allow over the last several decades the politicians in D.C. and their masters on Wall Street to absolutely turn for us from a constitutional republic that was the manufacturing superpower of the world into a nation that is indentured. We are indentured by the fact that we have allowed ourselves to become so far into debt by countries like China, Saudi Arabia, Japan, the Federal Reserve. These are who holds the leash of America at this point. And the idea that by suddenly bringing him over here, having a dinner, and everything's going to be better and trade relations are going to get better, the idea that we're as important as we once think we were is a farce. We are not as important as we once were. We are not necessarily their only source. We're not the United States Mall of America. And they realize that if they see the handwriting on the wall, they understand that the manufacturing base has been shipped abroad. They understand that there is no such thing as proprietary ownership on technology. They have absolutely no problem whatsoever reverse engineering anything that we send over there to make and making it themselves and making it with slave labor. So the idea that they're going to change their business model and put 1.6 billion people potentially in the unemployment lines over there and having social and civil unrest in the streets of China and costing potentially the power of the elite in China running that country, the idea that they're just going to let their yuan increase in value and hurt their economy is a joke. What is their motivation for doing this? Because a nation of 300,000 or 300 million in decline is threatening to impose what? What are we going to impose? Are we going to stop sending our technology over there? Well, it's too late for that. There's no choice at this point. We're a nation absolutely addicted to slave labor-made material, and when that supply chain ends, it will also be the end of a huge swath of this economy, 70% consumer-based economy, and if you take into fact that most jobs created today are in the service sector, these low-paying jobs that you cannot consider a career, you can consider them just that, a job, and you're living in poverty with these jobs at Walmart. You're living without health insurance with these jobs in Walmart. And as an article I dumped into the chat room before the show started points out, that a lot of these 43 million Americans who are currently on the food stamp rolls have jobs, but they're jobs that are a result of the policies of this nation over the last several decades that has taken away good manufacturing jobs and left us with what? A bunch of garbage, a bunch of service sector jobs that are low-paying, temporary, that hold no future. So you have these people who take these jobs because that's all there is, and they're forced to turn to the government looking for help. And that's why we end up with 43 million people bellying up to the food stamp rolls. And of these 43 million people, in 26 states at least, if you're drawing your food stamps, your debit card, you're having that card issued to you by none other than J.P. Morgan Chase, one of the too big to fails. Now, some of the news that came out today that I want to talk to Christopher about is I talked to him briefly before the show, and I truly believe, just by stories I've been sourcing for my website and the tenor in the business media, in the mainstream business media, I believe we're close to seeing another hat-in-hand move by the too big to fails, asking for more bailouts. Today, Goldman Sachs earnings came out, and they were down 50% in the last quarter. Their profits only a couple $1 billion made by a company, in my opinion, that should no longer be in existence. If we were going to nationalize it, then we should have went ahead and nationalized all of it, not just their failure. But this $2 billion profit was a 50% decline. I've also seen many stories in the last week about we're on the precipice of seeing a lot of the sin come home to roost in derivatives, a lot of the sin come home to roost in the housing sector, and that could spell another round of banks crying that if we don't fix their problems again, once again we'll be lined up against the wall and be told, give us this bailout money, or we will pull the trigger, and that will be the end of the economic world. I think we could see a limited bailout phenomenon in 2011. We could see a full-on bailout phenomenon in 2011. Everything is so integrated in the name of free trade, NAFTA, GATT. Everything is so integrated. Something could start tomorrow morning in Greece. You know, the Greece problem that you thought was over with and dealt with a IMF bailout, this problem is far from over with. It's back in the news tonight. Germany's trying to make contingency plans to see what to do if they default on their debt. We could wake up tomorrow morning and have a nation like Greece say, that's it, we default, and the cascade starts all over again. None of these problems have been fixed. None of them went away. They've been papered over. And while they were papering it over, billions and billions and trillions of dollars have been shoved into the pockets of these elite bankster ruling class, and we are left holding the tab. So when they belly up to the bar the next time, we need to have some answers. We need to be able to say to them, not again. You're not doing this to the people again. And that's the reason why we're going to have Christopher Greene on tonight to talk about some of the ideas he's got and what he's going to do, proposal he has for moving forward and, continuing to wake people up and then offer solutions as well. Christopher, thank you very much for joining the program tonight. Always a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, Charlie, thanks for having me on. Can you hear me clearly?
Crystal clear.
Great. Yeah, glad to be here. And I know we talked a little bit before the show. I don't know if people really realize how significant today was. And I'm not sure if you watched the video yet with President Obama and President Hu from China, but it's significant in the fact that it's an acknowledgement of just how broken America is. And just the fact that we really are on this unsustainable path to self-destruction, which has been, directly led, by our leaders. And, excuse me here, I've got if you can still hear me, but.
Yeah, no problem. You're there. Did we have a little hiccup on technical issue there?
Yeah, just having a little technical issue there. But anyways, Charlie, in terms of more bailouts, we're definitely going to have more bailouts. QE3 is on the horizon. I don't think that we're going to be pitched it that way. However, I don't think they're going to pitch it as QE3. I think what we're going to have is backdoor bailouts, which is what we're already seeing. And I think I mentioned this the last time I was on your program with Fannie and Freddie Mac, backdoor bailing out the banks. In addition to that, people don't realize that the banks are still just holding, all of this inventory, all of these foreclosures that they're not bringing to market that still have to be sold. Those are more losses that these banks are going to have to realize at some point. But, they haven't even addressed that problem yet. So, things are going to get worse. We're clearly in this stages of collapse. People constantly are pointing to the Dow Jones Industrial Average, approaching 12,000. But, the point is that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the Dow Jones is at 18,000. What we're seeing here, and I titled one of my videos on this, is that, the theme song for 2011 is Watch Wall Street Prosper. Watch Wall Street recover while Main Street suffers. While employment continues to be at record multi-decade highs, while we continue to see more layoffs, while we continue to see more people, in massive foreclosures with massive short sales, and, a general destruction of the dollar, and, a general increase in all kinds of commodity prices, basic necessities that we need to live. I mean, we've got oil at $90 a barrel now. I think we could see $150 a barrel within the next 12 to 18 months easily. So you're looking at $4, at the gas pump. These are some just major, dramatic issues that we've been talking about for a very long time. And you've probably hit this on the head many times over your past few shows, but, the alternative media concept is very much being attacked. Is that something that you discussed previously with the shootings here that we had in Tucson?
Oh, absolutely. We've been, a matter of fact, I think last night I even mentioned that, I have a personal disdain that I'm even still on the subject because it is being used as a weapon to go after alternative media. It's amazing, Christopher. You see, the powers that be, the ones who are setting the agenda, the ones who are controlling the dialogue. They will take anything that is grassroots, like the Tea Party, and just put it through an absolute meat grinder. And Warren pointed out Monday, I was one of the original Tea Party members in Montana. This was under George Bush, so this wasn't an anti-Democrat thing, Obama or whatever. I was out there on the first tax day protest under George Bush because of $600 billion stimulus in the form of, $180 billion stimulus in the form of $600 checks that went out. Because it was ridiculous then, and since then, it's far, far worse. But I don't want to get off on that. But it is amazing the meat grinder that the people setting the tone, steering the conversation, can take something like grassroots, like the Tea Party, label it, tie it to, shackle it with the Republican Party, and then absolutely destroy it. Now we're seeing the same thing with independent alternative media. And I don't care if it's Alternet, who seems to be, leans more towards a progressive ideal, or if it's Activist Post, which is right down the middle, or Blacklisted News, that just reports the news as it sees it. Any alternative media, I think, is being viewed as an outright threat, including YouTube, including Christopher Greene, including Charlie McGrath, as an outright threat to keeping control of the message. There's a lot of people, Christopher, yourself included, who look at every piece of news with a absolute jaded eye, and you don't buy the fact that J.P. Morgan Diamond is out there singing the blues because he's only making 12 cents a transaction instead of 44 cents a transaction. So the assault on alternative media has been in our topic lines. Unfortunately too much, but I think it's important to keep talking about it because I don't want to see. As a matter of fact, I exchanged some emails with the owner of the Activist Post, and I let him know that coming up here in the next month or two, I want to get a lot of the alternative media websites together, and I don't care if they're leaning far to the right. I don't care if they're leaning far to the left. As long as they're independent thinkers and they put their point of view out there, so we know what it is before we digest the news they present. It doesn't matter to me if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, Communist. I don't care. I want the truth. I want real people and real media, real alternative media, and I want to do more collaborative projects. And I've even spoke to you about this, that I'm very interested in working with you and Green Wave TV and your website in any way possible. And it isn't for ratings or anything like that. It's to keep this community alive.
Yeah, and let people decide for themselves and let them consume the information and the news that they want. And what we're seeing, and we saw this as a result of the tragedy in Tucson, which hit close to home here, and is, just very tragic. And obviously my heart goes out to all the people that have, suffered through that event. But, you've got this clear attack, again, on alternative media, and it's more fear-mongering. It's more fear-mongering, just like we had in 2008, which, forced the public into bailing out the entire broken, insolvent financial system. And now we're getting fear-mongering that, hey, if you go on YouTube and you listen to a Charlie McGrath or a Christopher Greene or a Warren Pollack, you're now a terrorist. You can't even consume real, honest information in a supposed free country, in a country that protects the First and Second Amendment, in a country that protects free speech. So, they're trying to scare us into a corner. And my plan is, instead of being fearful and instead of being scared, I'm going to launch even more and more projects out there, which is where I think it comes into a collaborative effort with other like-minded people. And I don't know about yourself, but I've had a lot of people reach out to me lately that are just saying, hey, Chris, I don't maybe agree with everything you say, but I agree with a lot of it. And, we really need to get together and do something about the problem. And that's where the focus is going to be with a couple of the projects I'm working on, one of them being greenwave.com, which I'm a few days from launching, that I'm very excited about. And, again, Charlotte, love to collaborate with you any way I can with your website and radio show, et cetera. But we need to start focusing on the solutions. And I already feel it. I'm already seeing it. We're having a grassroots movement in America right now as people are realizing things aren't getting better. Again, Wall Street's prospering while Main Street suffers. And, the fact that $15 trillion of wealth was destroyed and transferred in 2008 was not a mistake. It was engineered by the banks and the broken financial system that was rotting at its core to begin with. So we need to start addressing these problems, and the first step is to not only organize in a positive, peaceful way, but to start to, promote and to start to find solutions. And, through the power of the Internet, Charlie, we can collaborate with the brightest, most brilliant people in all kinds of industries and all kinds of professions all over the world. And you know what? Let's take the subscribership and the viewership from thousands. Let's take it to millions and see what our federal government and officials have to say about, how the people feel in a country where we supposedly have a say on how things are run. And, that's what they've been doing for the past few years, Charlie, with alternative media, is first, they ignore you. Secondly, they laugh at you. And then when you start to get a little bigger, they start attacking you. And that's what's happening now. We're being attacked. So we need to get the message out there. We need to start collaborating with great force.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And first they ignore you, second they attack you, or they laugh at you, third they attack you, and fourth, you win. And I believe that's a quote from Gandhi in his peaceful revolution, his peaceful noncompliance. And that's exactly what we need in this country. We don't need any hotheads going out there, trying to take matters into their own hands or thinking that we can solve our problems through physical force or violence. I'm not saying that if we have a breakdown crisis, you might come to defend yourself. This situation could surely come to pass. But as far as changing this country into something better, peaceful method is the only method that is sustainable, and it's the only method that is wholesome enough to take root and to override the propaganda machine and to override this unjust system that we have now.
Yeah, well, look at what's happening now, Charlie. I mean, look at China. Look at today. Look at President Obama meeting with President Hu. Now, if you look deeper into that, one of the things we've talked about, I believe on your show before, is the fact that the Federal Reserve is now the biggest holder of U.S. Treasury debt. Now, this has just been part of the program of all this quantitative easing to infinity. They're just buying our debt. They're buying our Treasury debt because they're the buyer of last resort. And what I heard some talk about today is the fact that, China, well, they're going to start dumping their holdings. They've got about $1 trillion worth of holdings if you include Hong Kong as well. So that's an inevitability. I mean, the red giant is definitely, going to be, the dominant force in this new world that we live in. I mean, if you compare it to the United States with, roughly 300 million people, China's 1.3 billion is going to be quite the powerhouse. So, it's just one of these things, Charlie, where if we don't start implementing some of these solutions now, not only will violence, unfortunately, be part of the problem and be an inevitability like we're seeing all through the world with civil unrest in Greece and, all throughout Europe and London with, increases in tuition rates and in Tunisia with hundreds of people dying. I mean, unless we start doing something and acting now instead of just, complaining about it, will there be any meaningful change? And, at the end of the day, I think any, rational person out there, that's what they want. We want to live in a place that's free. We want to live in, I think, a capitalist system. I don't think we really live there anymore, and that's the problem.
No.
That's why people are speaking out. So, those are some of the issues and problems that we need to be addressing.
I agree. I could not agree with you more, actually. In fact, I think this genre, this arena, let's call it alternative media, to lump everybody in, everybody from YouTube and everybody from the blogosphere, internet radio, alternative media in general, I think has grown to the point where it has become, its purpose has been served. Enough people are waking up that the majority of Americans no longer trust the mainstream media. So that purpose has been served. So it is now time to take that next step. Because I think if we don't take that next step, the attacks from, again, the powers that be that control the dialogue, that control the agenda, are going to keep their attacks on until they destroy alternative media altogether. So, Christopher, I could not agree with you more. We're going to be right back. We're going to take our one and only break. Callers, welcome, 877-342-6673. We'll be right back with Christopher Greene on Wide Awake Radio. All right, welcome back. Welcome back to Wide Awake Radio. I'm Charlie McGrath, your host. We have 100 people in the chat room, or roughly 100. If you want to join them, go to wideawakenews.com and click the Wide Awake Radio link, and it'll take you right into the chat room. Christopher, I did pull some questions out of the chat, and I'm going to get to these in a second. But first, I want you, in your videos today, we haven't even talked about this yet. You talked about some of the goals you're going to have in launching your website. Now, and you and I have talked briefly about this, and as you well know, as soon as I'm resettled in, that we'll be talking more about this, especially collaboration into things. But you had, I had assumed you were starting a website that was going to be giving out information, but listening to your videos today, you're going to take it a little bit further than that. So why don't you elaborate a bit on that?
Yeah, well, we're taking it further. I mean, we're definitely moving into the alternative media concept, which is what the people are demanding, which is why people are watching our videos, so they can get real, truthful, honest information that's unbiased, that's, not controlled by, mainstream corporate America, that's heavily influenced by lobbyists and politicians, et cetera, et cetera. Again, let the people consume the information they want, let them decide for themselves. So a big push, for what we're going to be doing is we're going to, be raising the production quality of our videos. So that's something I want to do, is invest in better equipment to, raise the bar on this concept. In addition to that, we're going to be looking for collaborators, and I'm also a writer myself. So we're going to have a lot of investigative journalism articles, almost similar to what you're seeing at zerohedge.com. If you're familiar with that, we're going to be doing that kind of journalism. And I think what's different and what we're kind of also visioning is that we're really creating a community of like-minded people, and we'd like to network, almost like the major networks, but network alternative media together in a way where it brings everyone into one spot. And, we're going to have forums, we're going to have live chat, we're going to have ways that you can interact and connect through Facebook and Twitter and all the social media outlets that people are already using. And, again, obviously we've got problems. Obviously we've got serious issues ahead of us. But, let's move past that and start focusing on solutions. And, some basic solutions. And I think a lot of it's going to be, self-created by our subscriber base is, just common sense. And I think we've talked about this before, but just start changing your habits. If you don't like what's going on, if you don't like bailouts, if you don't like the fact that Wall Street's getting wealthy at the expense of the people and you're paying for it and you're suffering, well then, you know what? Don't do business with the big banks. shun the big banks. You don't shun these bailed out institutions. Change your way of life. There's other areas I'm not an expert on outside of economics, like food and gardening and, building communities with other like-minded people. That's something that I'm even starting to see here in Phoenix. I had a few people contact me over the weekend and invited me to a feature film called the Zeitgeist movie. I'm not sure if you saw that.
Absolutely.
But I believe it was filmed in over, I think, a couple hundred countries. Huge viewership. Talks much about the concepts that we're talking about here. So I think that's going to be the start of where we can really, truly grow into a future. I mean, this is already happening with the advent of technology and the advent of the Internet. I really believe that if we just, help each other and, keep, spreading this information, that we can have a positive impact and do something great, do something bigger than ourselves, because it's bigger than me, it's bigger than you, Charlie. I mean, we're all in this together, and, it's clear that we're on a path that's unsustainable. And the scariest thought that I can think of is, what is Plan B? If we look at what the Federal Reserve is doing here right now, and we look at what central banks are doing all across the globe, what is Plan B? And the answer to that question is, Charlie, they don't have one. They do not have an exit strategy. We are literally just throwing crap at the wall, hoping that it sticks. That's why we've got all these bailouts. That's why we have all this quantitative easing. It's only evidence that, our economic system is failing and has failed. And, that's why we need to start creating some of these solutions. I mean, we're going to have, I think, 8 billion people on planet Earth in the next 20 years. And that's going to pose a problem. I mean, if you think oil prices are a big deal, if let's say we see $4 to $5, a gallon at the gas tank, what about things like we take for granted in the future, like water? I mean, water could be one of the best investments in the next 20 to 50 years you could ever make. Or what about air? As we're continuing to pollute the earth and pollute our planet. And in addition to that, what we focus on is polluting our economy. So I think, it's bigger than the United States. This truly is a global issue. There are tons. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I agree with you. I couldn't agree more. Like I said earlier, and the idea that $4 or $5 gallon gas isn't coming is absolutely insane. As you mentioned, they're throwing things to the wall. Through quantitative easing, through backdoor bailouts. I dumped a story into the chat room of a $12 million backdoor bailout for Domino Pizza. I mean, there is so much going on now that is not reported to Congress. These emergency powers that have been given over to the financial masters. They're doing everything they can, trying to paint a rosy picture and get the stock values driven up. To instill confidence in this economy so we can borrow money from around the world, and it isn't working. I mean, we are the buyer of last resort, and I agree. Now, somebody put a comment in the chat during the break that peaceful change is a pipe dream, and I gotta, I respect all comments come in there, but I gotta, disagree with that. That is the only way that we will get change. If it gets to a point where some people think it's going to get to, where you're taken to the streets in hordes or in mobs, trying to affect change through a gun, then you truly are you're lost. I mean, and that's a no-win situation. Christopher, this, like I said a second ago, this movement has done what it, I believe, all it can do as far as waking people up. I think you nailed it when you say the key is now to network. We need millions and millions and millions of people who are no longer trusting in the mainstream media, who are no longer trusting in what we used to call representatives. We need them connected somehow. And it is, this own technology that we're speaking on right now is the key. And if we can get peacefully millions and millions of people in contact and relying on each other for news and relying on each other for reports on the economy or reports in certain states or districts, counties, even cities on corruption in government. That's how we're going to get change. We're not going to be swayed by the Fox News, CNN, the cable, all the cable networks or the paid for alphabet networks. We need to break the stranglehold on information, and that is how we will truly get change that is positive in this country. I do have more questions I wrote down from the chat, but since we have Radio Crafter holding, I'm going to go ahead and take his call since he's been holding for quite a bit. Radio Crafter, are you there?
Yeah, sure am, Charlie. Good evening to you and Chris. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
Hey, I've been an independent businessman for 27 years, and I want to tell you, it's tough out here. And I've got to but completely agree with you that the people that think they're going to muscle their way through these problems that we're having, it's just not going to work. I kind of look at this as like the running of the bulls in Spain. The smart people don't try and stay ahead of the bulls. What they do is they get against a wall or inside of an alcove where a door is, and they let the problems go on past. But my question is for Chris and you, Charlie, perhaps if you can speak to this. I see on the board several of us are wondering if we have an approximate timeline, and I'm not looking for a crystal ball, but what kind of a timeline we're going to look at before the economy is impacted to the point where John Q. Public finally turns his head and says, hey, what's going on here? Why doesn't my dollar buy a loaf of bread, if you will?
It's a good question, and I'll answer it and then give Chris a shot. I think we're there, Radio Crafter, honestly. If you look at some of the statistics that I've seen that show that the swing in the masses is to no longer trust the news that's being reported to them, that to me is a very key indicator that they're not buying the hype anymore. Guys like me and Christopher and alternative media have been doing everything they can to try to drive home the point that Wall Street's health has not only is it systemic for Main Street's health, it's at this point a cancer. The healthier they get, the worse off Main Street gets. I think that more and more people are awake to the fact that they're being deceived by the pretty lady or pretty guy on mainstream media sitting there and reading a teleprompter telling them that everything's okay when everybody I know is affected by this depression. Every single person I know without doubt has a member, a family member or a loved one who has lost their job or taken a reduction in pay. I know I can't even tell you how many business owners like you that I've talked to that have either given up altogether or scaled back to 1995 type numbers in their employees and their benefits, and they're terrified. They just don't want to.
And I have not laid off or reduced hours or reduced pay for any employee. I made a promise to them ahead of time, but I'm telling you, I don't mean to impress that, but it's becoming a real challenge to keep that promise.
Yeah. No, what business? What are you in, Radio Crafter? What business are you in?
I'm in the wholesale electronics repair business. Okay. So you have been probably somewhat benefited by the massive amount of money that was spent in the stimulus. For commercial projects, upgrades in federal buildings, things like that. Oh, negative.
Really?
When you can buy replacement product from China for less than my people can fix it for, I'm out of the game.
Okay, so you're not selling. You're not selling components. You're not selling components, and
no.
You're actually going out and repairing or installing.
Yeah, we're actually repairing it. We're repairing a lot of commercial and government, state, and federal government product. But still, when you get to the point where it's $200 to fix something, pull a number, and the new product is 150, we're out of the game.
Yeah, you're going backwards. I know exactly what you mean. We source. Matter of fact, I had an owner of 4 Chinese factories, a gentleman from China, in our facility 2 days ago, trying to put out some sales for this upcoming building season. And yeah, when I can go to China and buy a fence board, for $1, and I can buy it from somewhere in Oregon, and it's $4. 400 miles away from me, I can get it, but it costs me 4 times as much as it does to go 12,000 miles. It's hard to compete in that.
Yeah.
I want to get Christopher in on
Want to
this.
buy some drywall?
Yeah, no kidding. And rust your pipes out. Christopher, what are your thoughts on I guess Radio Crafter's question would be more like, when is the average person going to realize that it's game over?
Well, I think, there's a couple possibilities, and if you look at the timeline, of course that's the question that everyone's asking. What is that timeline? Nobody can give a definite date, but I'll tell you, people are waking up right now. I mean, it's affecting people right now. So if we throw out the possibilities, possibility one is that it's a slow decay. It's a slow rot. We had the bomb go off in 2008. Now we're feeling the after effects. We're feeling that radiation. People are starting to ask questions. Why am I losing my job? Why is everyone around me unemployed? Why is the college education I paid 6 figures for worth nothing? Why is the dollar being destroyed? Why am I losing my house? Et cetera, et cetera. And, things just progressively grow worse. Possibility number 2 is chaos theory. Chaos theory kind of ties into the systemic failure of our system in 2008. It's where, the butterfly flaps its wings, and then all of a sudden we have total, complete social breakdown. Now, I think it's going to be a combination of 2. I think that we're going to see slow decay. I think we're going to see more and more problems. I think we're going to see more and more civil and political unrest. I think we're going to see more riots. Unfortunately, I think we're going to see more violence. And at some point, it's going to snap again. And chaos theory is going to come into play. And one of these days, we're going to wake up, and I don't know when the exact day is, but it's not going to look anything like the America it once did. It's going to look completely different. And, that's what we're trying to avoid. Option number 3, possibility number 3, just to throw it out there as any scientific objective mind would be, that none of this ever happens, that the United States and the world just goes on its merry way, and, we just hold hands together into the future. I'd love for that to be the reality, but, the problem is, we haven't, again, solved any of the root problems that we had that caused the event of 2008 and caused all of these systemic failures. Yeah. So even if they continue the party for a few more years, and it might be a few more years from now, at some point it's only going to create further dislocations and, further, bigger, more aggressive asset bubbles, bigger and greater than what we saw prior to the collapse here just a few years ago.
Sure.
And it's going to end in disaster. And so that's the problem. It's a structural, fundamental problem. And that is why we need to wake more and more people up, because it's not that it can't be fixed, but if we don't start doing something about it now, you're going to wake up one of these mornings, grab your cup of coffee, and it's going to be a very, very scary place.
Well, I agree with you completely, Chris and Charlie. And one of the questions that one might ask of our elected leaders who keep speaking of this economic rebound that we're waiting. The green shoots are coming up, and some of the other rhetorical statements that they make is, what in the world? What is the foundation that this rebound is going to come from? Manufacturing's gone either to Mexico or China. I can tell you that we work with one big company that begins with S and ends with Y, and all of their product is rebuilt, and they say, oh, it goes to Laredo, Texas. Well, what they don't tell you is a truck takes it from Laredo, Texas, over to Nuevo Laredo, Mexico, where it's fixed for $4 an hour and trucked back and to a U.S. address and then resent back out. So our manufacturing industry, which
to answer that, Radio Crafter, I'll tell you what it's the same answer they give on gold and silver. You're a Neanderthal if you believe in precious metals. The standard line is that the United States is a developed nation, so developed nations don't build things. We don't go out and produce things to sell to the world. They produce things and sell it to us. This is the model they've sold to us, and they've managed to make it work for the last several decades because we've been able to outsource things, outsource the labor, buy it back in, and we've had a Federal Reserve that not just under Ben Bernanke but under Greenspan before him, making a borrowing policy that made it available for everybody to go out and load up on debt, the nation as a whole to load up on debt, to finance wars around the world and never pay for any of it. And it looks like prosperity, and it has looked like prosperity for the last several decades. But now it's all coming, it's all flooding back into roost.
So our big rebound is going to be built on an economic model where we deliver pizzas to one another.
Yeah, well, I think it's more along the lines of. No, you're right. The model that is in place now, where I see it going is the police state model. 60,000 people working for TSA, more and more people being hired by government agencies, I have a relative who works for was a new hire at the Department of Veterans Affairs. They're expanding. IRS 16,000. The government keeps growing, so we're ending up with a government economy. But of course that's not sustainable. So the idea that the housing industry is coming
nothing.
back.
All it does is
no, it doesn't. It's worse than not producing anything. It sucks at the lifeblood of a nation. So recovery. Where? The last time we saw this was World War II. We had a Great Depression, and we went to war, and millions of people died, and nations, ramped up production in order to kill one another. So perhaps that's the ultimate goal.
We can't even do that. If we don't get
parts
from China for our smart weapons or even our dumb weapons, they don't fly.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Reserves, I can tell you that.
Well, it's a problem that certainly can keep you up at night to see where we're going to grow out of. The answer is simple: we're not going to grow out of it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let me just leave you with one thought, and the other folks in the room. See Blue Cats in there and Cookies and everybody. I see where Virginia has offered up a bill, H.R. 577. It's the alternative currency to protect itself from likely Federal Reserve meltdown. And I can send you the bill by email. It's on the state's website or Commonwealth's website. But when I saw this appear in the statement that the delegate made in public by offering legislation which the preamble states that we've got a fiat money system, the Federal Reserve is is most likely going to melt down, and the federal government's in over its head in debt. And here is a codified, not codified, it hadn't been codified yet, but here is a bill which is already accepted in the legislature and also the Senate. It's in committee, but when you start seeing states talk about this and talking about the degree of problems that we're in public, I think it's time for people to really open their eyes, pinch themselves on the butt, and do what Blue Cat and Cookies and a number of people in the forum are talking about, and get prepped up and try and avoid this thing.
No,
don't get caught up in the problems.
No, I agree. That's great advice.
That's all I had.
Go ahead and send that to me at info@wideawakenews.com.
Roger that.
And I'll get it posted, and we'll get it posted up on the website. Thank you for the phone call. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for taking it, and back to the room.
All right. Enjoy the rest of the 2 minutes of the show. All right, Christopher, we are sitting at about 2.5 minutes. I have a few other questions. I'm going to run them down real quick here. Sunflower asked, dollar devaluation, when will it happen? I think it's happening every day. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it's happening every day. I mean, we've had a technical, rebound, seen a little strength in the dollar, but long term, you're just going to watch it decline.
All right, and this is probably the last time we have for the last question, but it was Centerville in the chat room, and I love this question. What in the present system is working? And since I wrote that down 20 minutes ago, I've come up with nothing. I mean, the police state apparatus is working, but like Radio Crafter pointed out, that's not only a negative. It's not only doesn't produce anything, it's a draw on the economy. Christopher, what is working in our system?
Corruption. That's what's working very well, fraud and corruption. And, the robbery, just the outright basic stealing of, $15 trillion of baby boomer wealth in 2008. It was a very successful program for the people at the top. But to leave it on a more positive note, what's also working is alternative media. Chat rooms like this, radio programs like Charlie McGrath is running, websites that I'm going to be putting up, and the concept of alternative media and the concept of really a global awakening.
You said it beautifully. How do I get a hold of you, Christopher?
You can get a hold of me a couple ways, Charlie. So
the way that you don't mind giving out over the air would be the best. How about C Greene 34 at YouTube, and soon greenwave.com, right?
Yeah, you can get a hold of me at greenwave.com, and again, that's Greene, Greene, wave.com, and I can take emails and questions and comments at info@greenwave.com right now. So I am getting emails, and to everyone out there listening, we need your help. Plain and simple, we need your help. So please let me know what you guys think you can do, and let's start implementing solutions.
Great advice, and I do definitely, especially in the coming weeks. Again, I hate to beat this subject to death, but when I'm relocated and can concentrate fully back on my projects, I definitely look forward to collaborating with you, your website, your YouTube channel, and to keep this momentum going, because it is as far as I can see, it is the only way that we have a positive outcome. Is this time next year we have 1,000 people sitting in this chat room, and instead of maybe 10 or 20,000 views on a video, it's 200,000, it's 1 million. It competes with the Talking Orange that you so eloquently put out in your video today. Talked about that. Christopher Greene, it is C Greene, Greene 34 at YouTube, or www.greenwave.com. Check out his videos. If you're not subscribed to him, please do so. It puts out a lot of good information. Thank you very much, Christopher. Tomorrow night we're going to have Dex on. Stay tuned. Jeff Rintz is coming up next. I hope everybody has a good night. We'll talk the same time tomorrow.